Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is your old pal Matt Orozco here, and I am beyond excited to be joined by Melissa LaMartikna today, who is the filmmaker and director and producer, rather, behind the upcoming film from Dread Presents for Sale by Exorcist. So, thank you so much, Melissa, for spending some time with me today.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited as well, and I love your just background. By the way, I see like a Deadly Prey gallery piece of work, a Gremlins 2 homage. So, I feel like I'm in
Yeah.
good company already.
Yeah. This
Um,
is actually a custom piece that Chris commissioned from Deadly Prey for Call Girl of Cthulhu, which is the movie that we met making.
oh my
So this
goodness.
is a Deadly Prey Ghana movie poster hand painted for our movie.
Oh, that's so cool. I love the work that they do. It's so bonkers and out there.
Oh, it's
And
amazing.
so
Yeah.
I happy you have like a one of one of your own movie because that's so rad. And
Yeah.
as folks may recall you from some of your previous films you've acted in, such as Call Girl from Cthulhu or A Course for Christmas. You spent over a decade in this industry. So I'm just curious to know, at what point did you feel the urge to want to go and direct your own feature?
Yeah, so before I started working on film, I was really heavily involved in theater, both as an actor and a director. And then once I met my husband, Chris LaMartina, of the aforementioned Call Girl of Cthulhu, I started getting into producing, and then we worked together directing more recently cutscenes for Amanda the Adventurer, which is a horror video game series that I wrote the narrative for. So started getting like my toes wet a little bit with directing film. And then when it came time to do For Sale by Exorcist, because it's such an actor-driven movie and performance-driven movie, um, we felt like it was like a good opportunity for me because usually Chris directs the movies that he writes, like this is really the
Right.
first time that he's had someone else direct a movie that he's written, which is like a huge jump. But because of my experience as an actor and because most of my work as a theater director is very actor focused, we thought this was a good one for me to step into the director's chair for.
Yeah, I mean it definitely is a performance heavy film, and the performances are great. I kind of compared it to like a bit of House Hunters meets The Frighteners. Um,
Love
so
that.
it's and it does have this kind of it's very much a comedy, but it has its horror sensibilities about it. And I know that you worked with your husband, your husband Chris LaMartina was the writer along with Rob Walker. But I'm curious to know if you were privy to the origin of this story at all. Obviously, your close proximity to Chris, how did you know? Can you share anything about the origination of this idea? Because it's kind of a wacky one.
Yeah, there are a couple of different things that kind of got the ball rolling on this. And one of them was Chris started getting kind of fascinated with the fact that, like, whenever you see a billboard or a poster for a real estate agent, it's always like this headshot of the real estate agent, right? It's never
Okay.
like, here are the houses I've sold. It's like,
Yeah.
here's me, a human being. Like, this has nothing to do with the house you're going to own. So it was kind of like, what might a character who's like, this is like how they center themselves in this whole story, like that whole personality, like that kind of opened the door to the story. And then another piece of it too was when we got married about 10 years ago, we went to New Orleans for our honeymoon. And in New Orleans, you see like for sale signs that have a little placard at the bottom that say whether a house is haunted or not.
Yeah.
And then that question arises like, what does that look like if that's that person's specialization? If you have a real estate agent who is like exclusively selling haunted houses, like what is their life like?
It's so cool, and especially the way it ends. I mean, obviously, we're not going to go into spoilers here. Watch the movie, people. But the way it ends is so satisfying in relation to that narrative thread because it kind of brings it back to the heart a little bit. But it never loses sight of the fact that this is really just a fun and funny look at the world of real estate through the eyes of the paranormal. And you've worked on so many indie productions yourself. Obviously with your background in theater as well. How do you think that all of that work helped prepare you for taking on kind of so much with the directing side of it? Obviously produced before, which I know helps everybody understand the lay of the land. But, how has your other work informed and kind of helped you get ready for this moment?
Yeah, sure. So like for me, the thing that I really have been interested in my entire creative career in theater and in film, is trying to create a sense of immersion, like Chris and I talk about it as like committing to the bit. Like we're both so into committing to the bit, which you can see with WNUF and his other movies. And for me, like this movie was an opportunity to take that idea of a mockumentary and like really commit to it and not just like slap that label on it, but think
Right.
about like, okay, what can we do with the way we're filming it, the way we're shooting it, the way I'm directing these actors, the casting, even like I cast a lot of theater actors who I've worked with because it's like people who are used to having all eyes on them in a theater production, I thought would be really well suited to this material because I wanted the cameras to like really follow the action, so that we can have that sense of discovery as if all these things are happening in real time. So I needed people who you could like turn to at any time and they're reacting, they're in the scene, and that's why I really went with theater actors. But I think like it's sort of the culmination of all my work as a theater director and as someone who is like very devoted to committing to the bit. Like, for example, a couple of productions I did in the past. And the thing with theater is so hard because it's like you tell people about it and you're like, man, I wish I could just like hand you a DVD and say like,
Right. Show it to me.
right? So, I directed years ago a stage version of A Bucket of Blood, the Roger Corman movie. So we like transcribed the script because it's public domain, We transcribed it and I did it so that you were actually, as an audience member, in the club. And then we had a little stage where Walter's apartment was. But I had musicians come in and do a pre-show, and then throughout the scenes, we'd have musicians and kind of break into it. I did an art show. So every weekend we had different artists coming in and hanging stuff on the walls, and they were actually selling it. So that like when you walked in, it was like you were really in that like beatnik club. Or I did a production of the Greek tragedy Medea, set that in the 1930s, had a silent film in the middle of it, like reframed it all so that it was basically like dealing with celebrity and like how we react to celebrity. Had one scene that I shifted into being like a press conference, so I'm like very into like how can we really immerse people and like really kind of like envelop them in this world for as long as we have them. And so with For Sale by Exorcist, like all of that previous work really informed my approach to like directing this movie.
That's so interesting because I think one of the things that when people talk about, the death of the theater, which is just not going to happen, like the experience of going to the theater is just, there's nothing like it. Even just for the silence, hopefully we get. But, there is this element of how do we bring the experience to people in a way that you can't replicate at home? And I'm curious to know, do you have any plans to do something that brings those kind of multimedias together where you have like maybe a film that you also have a theater play or like a stage play around so that it almost becomes this kind of multi-sensory experience where you have live action plus film all happening all at once.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been involved in a few productions like that as an actor. I've done a lot of work with the Baltimore Rock Opera Society. And so we've had some stuff that's been very multimedia in that regard. And I love it. I just love like not only the audience experience for that, but also the artistic experience of it and like pulling together people from so many different disciplines and putting that all into a showcase that people can come and like have sort of like wash over them. It's really
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
Well, if you ever do a stage play with the actor that played Father Doyle, let me know. He had me in stitches the entire time.
I love
Um,
him so much. Yeah, he's amazing.
um, I don't want to. There's one part in particular that involves peeing that I still can't get over. It's one of like I had to rewind it multiple times. I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like, this is like a Freddy got fingered moment. I loved everything about this. Um, so yeah, I would love to see more immersive horror like this, but I do think mockumentary found footage does present a good opportunity. And I love what you said too about how mockumentary is about committing to the bit because something that I'm not the world's biggest found footage fan, but what I will say is the best found footage films to me are the ones that really commit to the bit and the ones that feel like actual found footage, like an August Underground or a Blair Witch Project, where the wall of the illusion of film is not really there. It's just like you have to ask yourself, is this real? But so many of them just use it as an aesthetic. So, I like to see that you're going kind of not just committing, but being truly authentic to the style of the film. And, I'm looking ahead. What would be a dream project for you? I mean, now that you've kind of got a couple of directing bouts on the feature side and done the theater stuff. So what would be a dream opportunity for you going forward?
Ah, man, I don't know. Like, there's so many things always. And, I'm one of those people where I'm probably doing too many things at all times, like working on the film, working on Amanda the Adventurer. We have a band. I do a horror hosting thing, like an Elvira style character, Shocktail Hour with Aurora Borealis. So
Fantastic name, by the way.
thank you. So already, it's kind of like one thing, not to be like sappy for a minute, but like one thing that I like love about my relationship with my husband is that like we have become like such creative partners in such a true and encouraging sense. Like years ago, we made a record that's all like folk songs based on urban legends. And it all kind of arose out of me being like, I'd love to make a record. And he was like, all right, let's do it. And so next thing you know, like we have this record. It's called Vanishing Hitchhiker. That's our what we call the project Tales of the Hook. Um, so, but
That's
I think
good.
for me, we've kicked around an idea of a horror musical. So that's kind of like over the past couple of years been in the background, sort of percolating, but knowing that that's such a huge undertaking and would really expand like the scope of the people we're relying on for so many different roles. Like that's something that we're just kind of like, okay, when is the right time to make that? Because the next project we're doing is also ambitious in a different way. Chris turns 40 in April, so we're shooting a feature in 4 days in April. So, so like maybe we'll get to like the big dream project after we do all these like crazy sort of like pop into our mind, what do we want to do next kind of things? So,
That's so cool. You
or
found someone that you can like kind of enables the sporadic nature of ideas and
yeah,
creativity.
yeah,
And happy early birthday to Chris. I'm going to be joining him in June on my 40th. So
yeah.
um, we're getting up there, as they say, but
I
still young at
know.
heart. Um, on a similar but separate note, do you believe in ghosts and would you live in an alleged haunted house?
No, I don't know. I mean, I've definitely had like experiences that can't be explained, or at least like on the surface can't be explained. I think I do ultimately believe in ghosts. I'm like, there's that energy. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Don't not believe is
Um,
kind of where I stand.
yeah, right, right. I'm like, I can't just like say no, absolutely not. As far as living in a haunted house, I think I'd want to know a little bit about the ghost first, you
Right.
know? Like,
Is
is
it a
this a
bloody wall ghost?
spirit? Yeah, yeah. Or is it like, just Casper?
Yeah, it's totally different vibe, right? You don't want
Yeah,
something you're gonna have to keep replacing furniture. The other
right.
hand, if your ghost likes to do a little dusting, would
I
I be
love
o- would I,
that.
would I
Yeah.
be okay with it? Absolutely. Would it be a little freaky? Sure, sure.
Yeah, yeah, a little
Uh,
freaky. Like it's like leaving me weird messages on the mirror. Like, fine, that's creepy, but like, yeah, don't throw my stuff around.
as long as I know it's a ghost, right? It's like okay, I don't have to worry about checking under the bed or anything like that. And
Yes, yes.
um, and then my last question for you: if you were asked to program a double feature, and For Sale by Exorcist is one of the films,
Oh
what
goodness.
other movie do you think would make a great pairing with it?
Oh my gosh, what a good question, and one I'm like entirely not prepared for.
This always catches folks off guard because it's like you're racking through the thousands of movies you've seen in the course of a lifetime.
I know, and thinking about like what's the right vibe? Hmm. I'm trying to think like, do I go for like documentary kind of thing, or do I go just like, hey, here's a fun, weird movie night? Because if it's just a fun, weird movie night, I might like do For Sale by Exorcist and then have everybody stick around and watch Phantom of the Paradise.
Which
Because
is
I just
celebrating
love,
anniversary this year, I think.
yeah, I just love that movie so much. And it's so bonkers. And I feel like there's some stuff in For Sale by Exorcist that is so just like kind of off the chain, like craziness. Like we have these moments of chaos. And I'm like, I feel like you could like slide into watching Phantom of the Paradise, like after watching that.
I'd stick around for that
Yes.
double feature.
Would
That's
you? Okay, good.
oh
I think
yeah,
that's
oh
the
yeah.
test, right? Like,
I mean,
would you
Phantom of the
stay?
Paradise
Yeah.
is such a fun little movie, and it's hard to put it up with anything that's not Rocky Horror Picture Show or something similar because it feels so kindred spirits. But I would love to
Yeah.
see like for Sale by Exorcist and then right after some Phantom of the Paradise. So fantastic!
Cool.
Sign me
That's
up,
pretty
give me a
good.
ticket.
Yeah.
But
What would you pair it with?
I mean, I think The Frighteners would be so much fun. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think that movie gets not enough attention, and I felt so much like um I'm blanking on the main character's name right now, but she is so oh my
Our main
goodness.
character, Susan?
Yes,
Yeah.
Susan Price. She's such a like she's like the complete opposite of Michael J. Fox's character because she's like not down and somber, but like she also is looking at this as like a business as he is. So I just think they're kind of cut from the same cloth but on different fabric. Um,
Yeah.
so it'd be a fun little detour to something a little bit meaner, but at the same time just
Hmm.
as just still have that funniness to it.
That's a fun one. I'd go to that. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe like some house, some episodes of like the worst real estate reality show, like maybe just to kind of
Yeah.
give people the
Yeah.
context.
Or just like a super cut,
Yeah,
just like find like the craziest moments in like real estate associated reality TV. Open with that, like 45 minutes of that, and then for sale by exercise.
what? I think you're onto something. To be honest, that could be just in of itself like an avant-garde art piece of just the mundane aspect of real estate agent advertising. But I digress. Melissa, this has been absolutely fantastic. And thank you so much for making the time to speak. As a reminder, everyone, For Sale by Extras is releasing, is it March 9th, correct?
March
Or 8,
11th.
March
Yeah.
11th from Dread
Yeah.
Presents. It's going to be out on VOD digital. So please pick up your copies that way. And we will have our review posted to our site on the 9th of March. So be on the lookout for that. But Melissa, looking forward to the next thing you're doing. And thank you so much for your time today.